In this video, we're going to talk about smooth and cleanable surfaces. This is the second key principle of hygienic design. The importance of smooth and cleanable surfaces is we want to make sure that we're able to actually clean the surfaces that are important to be cleaned. The surfaces should be smooth and cleanable to enable efficient and complete cleaning, not to mention sanitizing and complete drying. A couple of examples here on the right hand side. If we look at the green spinner, that's a converted washing machine, it includes a plywood top. And that plywood top does a nice job of preventing people's hands from getting into this part of the machine that's spinning. However, it may be pretty difficult to get that completely clean. It's a porous surface. It's not terribly smooth. It has nooks and crannies, and eventually it's going to delaminate, and where the different layers of the plywood are going to come apart, and that can lead to some harborage areas where we're not going to be able to clean effectively, and they're not going to dry out completely, and that causes a problem for leading to the harborage of potentially human pathogens, but certainly plant pathogens. In the upper right hand corner are some brushes from a brush conveyor line. Again, these are really effective at scrubbing the outside surface of produce that needs a little bit of a buff to get it completely clean prior to market. But at the same time, that you can see they collect a lot of that plant matter. They're tough to clean. It's a lot like trying to clean a hairbrush. And so the first thing you got to do is get all that material out of there. And the next thing you got to do is actually get in there with some detergent and water to clean the surface underneath the brushes. Pretty hard to reach to get to the roller. And on the bottom right hand corner is an example of a nice small walk-in cooler where the grower really invested in the finished surface. And this is a smooth, cleanable surface that's made for washdown environments. This is called truss core. It's a tongue and groove locking washable panel, and this is a small walk-in cooler where the grower knew they would need to be washing it down from time to time, knew there would be high humidity and potential condensation to address, and wanted to have a good finished surface to take care of that. You can also see they use some closet shelving in there too as a way of keeping product up off the floor and keeping it easy to get to. It's also cleanable in that sense, so you can get in there and clean that shelving. You can detach it and bring it outside to hose it down and scrub it really in a real in-depth way. Barrel washers are something that come up from time to time in terms of how do you clean them and how well can you clean them, particularly wood stave barrel washers. The wood in of itself, we've already talked about plywood as on the green spinner as being a challenge to clean. The wood on the barrel washer could also be a significant challenge to keep clean, not to mention to sanitize and keep it dry between uses. You can see one of the key areas here where we tend to run into trouble is there are little gaps between the wood stave and the round hoops. That's a tough spot to really get into and clean on a regular basis. It tends to accumulate dirt, soil, and plant matter, making it really difficult to get completely clean between uses. And why does this matter? You might say that the top of the barrel washer may not be a big deal. The second photo down on the right hand side is a good example of where water becomes a great transmitter of whatever's on one part of a machine and getting it to another part of the machine. And so in this case, the barrel washer is rotating, and so we really want to make sure that all the surfaces that water comes into contact with is being kept clean. And so that's our goal here. So this is an example of a fairly common retrofit of a barrel washer. This is a stainless steel barrel washer that the grower who was using this found the smoothness of the stainless steel made it difficult to actually tumble the crop that they were trying to wash, and so the crop would tend to just wallow in the belly of the barrel and not turn over on itself, which is an important part of the washing step here. And so they added in this carpet and the wood planks to keep the carpet in place in order to provide that necessary friction to bring the crop over on top of itself and tumble it. And so here's the challenge, right? How do you clean carpet? in a way that you would actually want to eat off of it. Pretty challenging. And so, there's a case of, good intentions. They wanted to try to tumble the crop and make sure the crop was getting clean. Unfortunately, it introduced a real challenge from a hygienic design perspective. So, how to do that differently? Instead of carpet and wood planks there, it's probably worth talking to a local machine shop and talking about how to get some removable um, stainless steel lengths in there that actually turn the product and make sure they're not so sharp that they're going to cut the product. But the important thing being, we need to be able to tumble the product, but we also need to be able to get the thing out of the machine that we put in there to tumble the product. So some removable stainless steel L bracket or L channel or something like that would probably work just as well. Some other examples of again, good intentions from a product protection perspective. This is on the left hand side some carpeting that was put into place to protect these apples from being bruised as they go through this sorting line. Um, again, we can see this is definitely a food contact surface, right? We have apples coming into direct contact with that carpet. So it's soft, but it's also absorbent, and that's going to be very hard to clean. In particular, underneath the top layer is going to be very hard to clean on a regular basis. Versus another retrofit on the right hand side. This is using some pool noodles to sort of soften the edges of this sorting table on the end of a wash line. And so at first glance on the right hand side, that may be something that causes you some concern, but you know as long as you think it through, that the pool noodles can be removed. The underside is accessible. You can split those open and get at them for routine cleaning. So what I'm trying to highlight here is there's a range here of improvement, and I think on the right hand side is something that may well protect the product, but also still provides for some cleanability and access when needed. This is an example of some drying donuts that are typically on the end of a brush conveyor line. These have become a real challenge for many people. They tend to accumulate soil and plant matter over time. They also tend to never really get completely dry. These actually have a pretty wide space between them, allowing for a little more drying. Most commonly, these are tight together and a little bit difficult to dry. The standard approach to dealing with these from a hygienic design perspective is to plan on replacement on a pretty regular basis. I think there's probably a better solution here, and that's something like maybe a drying belt. So this is a porous belt that is a conveyor, and so it's coming towards us when it's running, and the porosity of the belt allows for moisture that comes off of product to drip through and be collected. And so the sort of hexagonal stainless steel piece on the top, about the center of that belt, is an air knife, and that blows high velocity air across the product as it rolls by, and that leads to just the water being sheared off, sort of like drying in the wind, and that water then goes through the belt, and on the underside is sort of a suction or a vacuum head that collects that water and brings it down to a collection drain and out to an intentional collection spot. This video has been about smooth and cleanable surfaces, and again, the key point here is we want to make sure the surfaces that we have on equipment, in particular food contact surfaces, are smooth and cleanable. We want to make sure that we can actually clean them efficiently and completely, and follow that up with sanitizing and complete drying when we need to. We just talked about smooth and cleanable surfaces, the second key principle of hygienic design. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to avoid collection points. This is the third key principle of hygienic design.